Welcome to Humanity First. Today we step into a chapter of African history written in fire and faith, a story of courage that turned fear into freedom. In the late 1800s, the Kingdom of Buganda was powerful, wealthy, and feared. But beneath the crown lay darkness, superstition, tyranny, and blood sacrifice. When the first Christian missionaries arrived, they brought more than religion, they brought conscience, education, and light. What followed would change Uganda forever, as young believers chose flames over fear and death became the seed of new life. First, we see the world before the gospel. Before the missionaries came, Buganda was ruled by Kabakas, kings who held absolute authority. The people worshipped spirits, ancestors, and gods of fertility and rain. Witchcraft guided justice, sacrifices sealed oaths, and the king's word meant life or death. Servants were executed at a whim, children offered to idols, and fear ruled hearts. Education was unknown, and no one dared challenge royal or spiritual power. But in 1877, a small group of missionaries from the Church Missionary Society, British Protestants, arrived on the shores of Lake Victoria, followed later by French Catholic missionaries. They carried books instead of weapons, faith instead of fear. Then came the clash of worlds. At first, Kabaka Mutasa I welcomed the strangers. He wanted their knowledge, their medicine, their connection to Europe. But his successor, Kabaka Mwanga II, saw them as a threat. Christian converts began to refuse the king's commands, especially his demands for immoral acts and forced idol worship. Mwanga's pride turned to rage. He saw Christianity as rebellion, as defiance of his divine right to rule. In 1885, the persecution began. One by one, royal pages, young men barely in their teens, were arrested for professing Christ. They were beaten, mocked, and told to renounce their faith. They refused. Now we remember the Martyrs of Uganda. On the morning of June 3, 1886, 26 Christians, Catholics and Anglicans alike, were marched to Namugongo, the royal execution ground. The youngest, Kizito, was only 14. Bound in reeds, they sang hymns as the flames were lit. Eyewitnesses said their voices rose above the crackling fire. "You can burn our bodies, but not our faith." Even the executioners were shaken. Among them was Charles Lwanga, the leader of the young converts, who encouraged his brothers as the fire consumed him. Their courage broke the spell of fear that had ruled Buganda for centuries. The blood of martyrs watered the seeds of belief that would spread across all of East Africa. We also recognize the missionaries' peril. Missionaries themselves faced danger, imprisoned, beaten, and banished. Many died of malaria or starvation. Letters sent to London described isolation and heartbreak, but they never abandoned their mission. They taught the people to read scripture in Luganda, built the first schools, and showed that even a slave child could read, write, and lead. Through their sacrifice, education and dignity were born where ignorance and oppression had reigned. From this sacrifice came a profound transformation. By the early 1900s, the flame that once killed had become the flame that healed. Ugandans built churches, translated the Bible, and spread the gospel to neighboring tribes. The same kingdom that once hunted believers now protects them. Schools, hospitals, and missions rose where idols once stood. Faith brought not just salvation, but civilization, literacy, and hope. The light had conquered the fire. Now we see the ongoing legacy and revival. Today, June 3rd, is celebrated as Martyrs' Day, a national holiday that draws millions of pilgrims to Namugongo, where the martyrs once burned. Uganda is now one of the most Christian nations in Africa, sending missionaries of its own to Asia and Europe. The fire that once consumed bodies now fuels a spiritual revival that crosses continents. From ashes came awakening. From death, life eternal. In closing, the story of Uganda's martyrs reminds us that truth is stronger than tyranny, and light is braver than darkness. When faith becomes costly, courage becomes holy. Those who died at Namugongo did not lose their lives. They planted them. And today, Africa stands as witness. The flames that once killed gave birth to faith. Thank you for joining Humanity First. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe as we continue unveiling stories where light triumphed over darkness and faith reshaped the world.